Hello, everyone. How are you doing? And welcome to another episode of the Dr. Will Show, where I talk to educators and entrepreneurs on leveling up. Each episode, I bring in someone who's dope, and we sit down and have a conversation on ideas and strategies on how you can take control of your life, your career, and your finances. Today's guest is Courtney Grady. And she is doing some awesome things when it comes to mentoring and working with young women of color in the community. And I wanted her on the show because I wanted to shed, some highlights and some shout outs on what she's doing, but also for those educators who are my audience. And maybe you're getting to the point of, man, I don't know if I can hold on that classroom any longer. I want you to understand that programs like the ones that she has created are programs that you can work in, or you start your own as well and still be able to use that education that you have worked so hard to get. So for those who will be watching on YouTube or be listening on iTunes and SoundCloud, will you please introduce yourself, Courtney?
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me. Thanks for calling me dope. That's pretty awesome. My name is Courtney Grady, and I am the founder and executive director of Unique Sisters All Girls Mentor Program, which is an all girls mentor program here in the Metro Detroit community. So we have roughly around 25 girls who are not just from the city of Detroit, but from the suburban areas as well. Our focus is looking at emotional intelligence, but more so looking at social and emotional learning skills and supporting that development with youth, but also exposing them to community development as long with professional awareness as well.
Fantastic. And thank you again for coming on the show.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. So because I always like to ask people this question. Who is Courtney Grady and what drew you to education and mentoring?
So Courtney Grady is a phenomenal woman. That's how I like to describe myself. That's my mantra and affirmation I give myself every day. But also I'm an emerging leader here in the city of Detroit. I am a mover and shaker in a sense of encouraging young girls of color to not to be buckled down what society labels them to be and who they are. I believe in defining yourself by your own definition. And so for myself, I grew up in the city of Southfield, but originally my family is from Windsor, Ontario. So we're all Canadian. And then we traveled over here back in the day. But with that piece of it, I grew up in a single parent household with my mother. And so my mom is the first individual, and alongside with my grandmother, who showed me the definition of strength, showed me the definition of leadership and self-determination, and just like looking at both of those phenomenal women in my life with raising myself and my twin brother, they were the ones that really started to put some of those pathways and set some of those footprints for myself to follow. When it came to mentorship is really, really important to me. I think outside of just your own personal village that you have at home with your family, I don't feel that you can just learn just from your family. I think you have to get out into the community. You have to find people who are encouraging, or you say like, man, I wish I could be like them, or I really like them for this reason. And so for me, I always found myself hearing from people. My two favorite teachers in the whole wide world, I always tell people this, is Mrs. Scott and Mr. Pop. Both of those individuals, and that's way back in middle school and elementary school. And before I can even attempt to turn left, they would say, come on back, Courtney. Stop right there. Don't do that. You're going to be a star. There's something great about you. And so at the time when you're young, you don't really listen to that. You're always trying to think like, stop like looking at me, stop talking to me. I'm like everybody else, but now at the age of 29 and just looking at that, I'm like, wow, I'm so grateful and so thankful to have two people alongside with my family to say, don't go left, go right, Courtney. It doesn't make sense now, but it'll make sense later on. So I want to be that person, where my girls look back, 10 to 15 years from now and say, Miss Courtney would say this if I make this decision. So let me do this just to support what she's been trying to instill in me all this time.
Wow. And that's awesome, because we Black people live in a different time
Mm-hmm.
because, during my father's time growing up, it was before integration.
Mm-hmm.
And so everyone lived in the same community. The doctor, the teacher, the lawyer, the pharmacist,
Mm-hmm.
they lived with the drug dealer. I'm like, everybody lived in the neighborhood. And so kids had all sorts of different influences and were able to see those people of success who looked like them.
Yeah.
And then after integration, and we started to be able to go work for certain companies and go to different universities, and the money started getting bigger, we started to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And then what was left in the neighborhood was a different kind of thing going on, where our kids started to not sort of see those images every day, where they could say, wow.
Yeah.
I could, Dr. Peterson is right down the corner. I know that's possible for me. So the work that you're doing is awesome, and I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. So you are the founder of Unique Sisters.
Mm-hmm.
I get you that because I want to know where the name came from. But what is the organization's mission, and what were you seeing in the community that inspired you to create the organization?
Mm-hmm. So our mission, honestly, is to encourage every young girl to be great and then also to reach for the world. I believe there are no limitations in life. I think with that opportunity of you just keep pushing yourself just to get to the next level, and then you conquer that and you say, okay, well, I guess I can keep going, So I always encourage our girls to reach for the world, and then always remind themselves that they are great, but then also to remind their sister on the right and the left of them that they're great also. In the sense of where the name came from, you mentioned that a little bit. Unique Sisters is a sense of where you want to define yourself in a unique way. I am Courtney Grady. I am an educator, and I believe that I can be a part of changing this world one step at a time and one girl at a time. That's who defines me. That's what makes me unique. And so if I can tell, my girl's Angelica, if I can tell Gabrielle, who are you? But not so much of just saying I'm Gabrielle and I'm 11 years old, but who are you? What makes you phenomenal? What makes you great? And so with sisters, I am the second oldest of 10. My mom only had myself and my twin brother, so that's a different story. But I found myself always wanting to be a role model in the sense of just looking at my younger sisters. I believe it's great that I have 30 young girls between the ages of 8 to 17 years old who look up to me. But my first mentee was my younger sister, Justice. And just to look at her, who she is as a young girl, and see some of her academic challenges that she had, and then just wanting to work with her to remind her that, it's okay that we didn't pass this test right now, but let's keep working so we can figure out throughout this process, where are you having your small hiccups? Or, she unfortunately has Crohn's disease. And so there's some issues nutritional wise, and all the sisters, we all have long hair, thick curly hair, and Justice's hair is short. And so she defined herself as not being pretty because she didn't have long hair like the sisters. So one of the things that I did when I turned 25, I just woke up and I just cut off all my hair, and I went over to her house. I'm like, do you think I'm still pretty? And she's like, oh my God, you cut off all that hair. I'm like, girl, it's just hair. It doesn't, that doesn't mean anything. God gave it to me, it'll grow back. But I just want you to know I'm not attached to it. So you shouldn't be attached to your exterior to define what's happening inside of you. So just Unique Sisters just came from that, just wanting to look at the mission of womanhood and woman empowerment. I don't believe you can get to the phase of woman empowerment unless you start with girl empowerment. And it has to start there, because if I can teach my girls now the importance of sisterhood and what that demonstration looks like, then by the time you become, 21 years old or 25 years old, it will be a natural habit just to see someone who's in help and not second guess, should I help them, or I want to help them because, someone helped me along the way.
I like that. So, what does your curriculum entail, and how? And I guess, when you're sitting back and you're going, I want to teach these young ladies this, and I want to cover that, and I want this program to have this shape. How did you I guess, lay down a plan of what that will look like and walk me through sort of what your some of your workshops actually.
Absolutely. So I have had the opportunity to just think about what are things that I've been exposed to throughout my life, what are things that I desire to have or to strengthen, and then what are things that just interest me. So our curriculum is called Four Pillars of Success, and it looks at social and self-awareness. It looks at community development, family engagement, and academic preparation. Being an educator and working in the education sector for 7 years now, and just seeing the deficiencies that we have in our urban communities, and the disadvantages that our students of color have compared to non-students of color in, better supported districts. I wanted to find opportunities to help guide our youth in the sense of just that type of exposure. So when we look at self and social awareness, we have what we call girl talk sessions. Girl talk sessions, we look at a variety of things and putting together like anti-bullying campaigns. Like bullying is a really, really big thing happening now. When I was younger in high school and middle school, social media was not really a thing. Like Facebook didn't exist, Twitter, all that stuff did not exist. And so bullying was like a physical thing. Like it just happened inside of like the hall rooms or whatever the case may be. Now we have social media bullying, and anything can like pop off in like 3.5 seconds with the hit of like post and release. And so it's like working towards those components. When it comes to academic preparation, our girls have to turn in their report cards every quarter. And if they do not have good academic standing, they're put on probation, basically, or academic probation. I look at Unique Sisters as an extracurricular activity. You do not have to do this. You do have to pass your class, in my mind, and in support to like my parents. So they turn in their report cards for me to monitor those pieces of it. We have family engagement nights where our family comes out and we go bowling or we go laser tag. But then there's also the academic piece of it in the sense of academic preparation. I believe in exposing young people to college or any other like professional like pathways at a young age. So yes, I'm going to take my 8th graders, my 8-year-old, to Michigan State University or the University of Michigan, just so they can see and feel like what it would feel like to be on college campus. Some of my middle school girls, they know they want to go to college. They know what college they want to go to. And so if I can bring them on that campus, then that's a way for us to do that. My mother instilled in myself and my brother of giving back to the community, giving back to those who are in need. We're always adopting a family. We're always giving to individuals who we see that are in need of support. So I wanted to bring that also into Unique Sisters. So what we do every year is we provide blessing bags, which are also known as hygiene kits, like to regular people, but we call them blessing bags because we want to be a blessing to someone else. I have a strong faith system, and I always believe in just referring back to God and just allowing my girls to see that they should be grateful for the things that their parents provide them. But then there's also children that are not in the same sense or not in the same like position that they're doing. So each year we always do a fundraiser so we can purchase hygiene items so we can package them together. This year we put together over 100 bags, and so the girls take the bags home with them. And so as they are riding, throughout the city and they see people in need, they are the ones giving back or giving the bags to someone in need. Some of our girls have never even seen someone homeless before. And some of our girls most of our girls have never even seen youth who are also impacted with homelessness. And so to have that exposure, I completely acknowledge what some of our parents are doing, not just within our parents that are part of the program, but just in general. If I grew up on the East Side and I always told myself like, man, I can't wait to get out of the city. I'm going to get out the city. And I had that opportunity to do so. That's great that you're not allowing your child to grow up in that same situation that you did, but it's also hindering them from realizing what's happening outside. Not everyone has this great story. Not everyone has, a bed to sleep in, clothes to put on, and teeth, or, a toothbrush to clean their teeth and whatnot. So if there's an opportunity to expose our girls to that piece of it, that's what we do with our curriculum of the 4 Pillars of Success, and by exposing them throughout those components throughout the year.
So I want to throw this out there to you, because when you do the work that you do, as well as, the work that the teachers I work with on a day-to-day basis do, sometimes you come across students that you want the world for them, but the students themselves don't want it, or they don't see it. And from the community they come from, or if you were to see their parent, you get a better picture of what's going on. But then you understand, in order for me to sort of get them here, I have to, I don't want to say remold them, but mentally they have to forget all of this other stuff, because this other stuff is what is contaminating their mindset right now. How do you work with people, young people like that, because when they only know one thing, and this is their mindset, this is their understanding of the world and who they are in that world, and you're trying to say, okay, we need to go here. How do you do that work? I guess I'm trying to word this, without sort of saying your family, this area, all this stuff, like, you got to let that go.
Right.
Because, this is what's holding you back. How do you work with them without doing that?
Right. So I look at, even though I have unique sisters, like I mentioned earlier, I've been in the education sector for the past 7 years supporting Detroit Public School Community District. I don't initially work for the district. I work for an external partner that supports the academic development of our students. And so with that, I am someone that looks at student data all day long, with the storyline that you have, the young man or the young girl who's in the 12th grade and cannot read and write, that a lot of people don't believe that's actually reality. If you're listening to this and you're looking at me, I'm here to tell you that is a reality, and it's an unfortunate reality that a lot of our students have to face, in a sense, right? And so for me, I really strongly believe in, one, keeping it real with students. I think a lot of times, people who come in and out of our youth lives, they believe they have to play a certain role. They believe they have to say a certain thing or anything of that nature. Children read all through that, just like, a sheet of transparent paper. They will be able to see that you're not honest, you're not real, and this is not you. And so they'll automatically write you off. So I'm always real with my students. I don't sugarcoat anything. I will sit them down and say, our report cards just actually released last week. And so I work with a group of students and I say, what's happening in English? What's going on? And they'll either say, I'm good. I'm like, no, you're not, because you got a D. What's going on? And that's real. I'm not going to say okay, Billy, we got a D this time. Let's try and get a C. No, you got a D because you didn't do the work, and you ask them questions. What do you aspire to be? Do you want to be the basketball player? Oh, okay, we can be the basketball player, but what happens when you tear your ACL? What do you do then? Do you have a plan B? So it's not so much writing off, the parent or their community. It's still acknowledging where you came from, because that's still where the mentor piece comes into play. I want you to really figure out what is your plan in life so you can come back to help someone that's just like you. There's always going to be another young lady or another young man that is going to still have the same desire and dreams of it. If there's an opportunity for me to expose, my students through just with food, sometimes, our students have never even seen a bell pepper before. Let's try this, or, our student has never even, read this type of genre of books or anything of that nature. So, that's not, the fault of the school district, and that's not the fault of the parent, because, you can't control your circumstances all the time. But then if you are in the process of just trying to make a transition or trying to make adjustments to that, you'll eventually break through whatever that barrier is. I I also believe in like getting to know my parents. I think just presenting yourself, and it's the reason why I believe I have such a great response from my parents and Unique Sisters. With Unique Sisters, all of my girls, I know them personally. I know their parents. They have my number on speed dial. I was a cheerleading coach with the Southwood Ravens, so a lot of my girls came from cheer. A lot of my girls came from church. Some of my girls are coming from family, and then other girls are coming based off of referral. The referrals are who I'm grateful for, because that means my parents believe in the time that I am given from God. And so they see that none of this is for me. I tell people all the time, my mission isn't for Courtney to get acknowledged. It's for your girl to get highlighted. It's for our girls to see like, oh, I can do this, or, oh, that's something new. I've never seen that. So if I get parents on board with what the work I'm trying to do, then I also have that other voice in their ear. Mm-hmm. So you have someone on the right and left of you saying, keep going, keep going, keep going. So if you have that balance, mm-hmm. then yes. Sometimes you're not always going to get that from our parents, because, they have life going on. They have to support their family. And so if I can be a part of that village, that's what I'm grateful for. But I'm always going to make sure whatever move that I make, your student knows, and we just keep moving together. So yeah, that's pretty much like how I support that in a sense. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you're in Detroit.
Yeah.
I feel like, yeah. Which, because of technology and globalization, has seen, its own challenges with the economics. Where do you see Unique Sisters filling in the gaps for the students you serve?
So with Unique Sisters, like I mentioned earlier, we focus a lot on like emotional intelligence and social emotional learning. For me personally, as Courtney Grady, when I was younger, thinking about myself in 9th grade, I was in my computers class, and my teacher called on me to read out loud. And I was reading, and just like in like the cartoon, when the words start like moving all over the place, like that was happening to me in real life. And I'm like, girl, what is going on with you? And I realized like I have, reading anxiety, and I realized I didn't like public speaking. And so I was always that student that just like try to just get away, like, oh, I know Miss such and such is gonna call on me. Let me just act like I gotta go to the bathroom, or whatever the case may be. And so what I realized when I went into college, like I was running away from this made up fear that I can't speak well. I made this made up fear that I can't read well, where none of those things are true. It's just that anxiety that you just kind of just develop on your own. So when I went to Central Michigan University, instead of spending thousands of dollars on something like I was already good at, I decided to go and get my Bachelor's of Science degree in communications. Like, how can I strengthen this fear of mine through practices and just putting myself in positions where I have no choice but to speak, because it's associated with the grade that I paid for. So I had to work on those things. And so with our youth, I see, a lot of that is also the same. The number one fear with adults is public speaking. If you ask anyone that, and if you didn't go to school for that, or you just are not this extreme external extrovert or anything of that nature, the number one fear with adults is public speaking. So even in our workshops, we always have a public speaking component, no matter what we work on. If it's an anti-bullying campaign, if it's the blessing bag campaign, if it's talking about self-acceptance, you're always going to get in front of our group, and you're always going to have to present something. Why? Because I don't want you to be an adult that says, I have a fear of public speaking. I want you to be the adult and says, I am confident in the voice that I carry, because my voice deserves to be heard. And so if I can help develop that phase of it, then I will. The next phase of community development or community engagement, it's very, very important to be selfless and not selfish, and that's the one thing I definitely am always pushing our girls to think about. even in our workshops with just working in small groups. But if you can get back into the community and expose yourself to something that you've never seen. We went to a soup kitchen, and the girls loved it. Like, just to have an opportunity where we had 3 girls, they stayed for a double shift. Like, they called their parents and said, don't come pick me up because I'm going to stay again. I'm like, yes, that's what I like to see. You know, like, I had parents call me and say, you know, your girl's over here giving away all her money. I was like, okay, well, she don't got to give away all her money now. But I'm glad that she knows that, you know, what she has, it will get replaced. But the person that she's looking at may not even have an opportunity or may not even receive anything within that day. So looking at a lot of those pieces of it, those are the gaps I'm trying to fill and allow academics to do what they need to do from the education standpoint. But the mentor piece of it is, how do we develop generational leaders who are part of the revolving door of mentorship, where they just don't go out, but they come back in so they can pick someone else up in the process and do the same thing.
So I've often heard you can't be what you can't see.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing to expose your young ladies to mentors who look like them? And how important is representation to the work that you're doing?
So part of the things that we just actually had our Women of Excellence panel. So Unique Sisters hosts 2 panels throughout the year. We have a conversation with the younger me that generally has individuals who are around my age, who are movers and shakers in like the city of Detroit. They have their own organizations, or they're part of like corporate sponsors or corporate organizations as well. And with a conversation with the younger me panel, that is a very personal type of panel. It's more so thinking of, what advice would you give your younger self in the sense of like going through like the motions of things. So what would I tell, you know, the 13-year-old Courtney? I would tell her like, girl, don't worry about him because he ain't gonna be nothing. Don't worry about it. You know, you hate math now, but you're going to want to know how to balance your checkbook. You know, tell those things. Like, I would tell that Courtney that, but ideally you're speaking to the 13-year-old who's in the audience, who's a part of my program in a sense. So that is one thing. And then our Women of Excellence panel are individuals who are in executive or leadership positions. Either they're the CEO of companies, or they founded their own nonprofit and they've come to participate in the panel. And they also share their story of how they got to where they are. They talk about their challenges. One, it's very difficult, one, to be a woman, but then to be a woman in a leadership role, either in a predominantly like male organization or male company or anything of that nature. So I'm telling you that it's okay to be extremely smart. I'm telling you it's okay to have a passion for engineering. Keep moving, because who knows, you can be the CEO of whoever company and a lot of people will have no choice but to look up to you. With that, you know, I think it's important to show as many women of color, just not within the African American community, but looking at our, you know, our Black and brown sisters in the sense of, you know, they face their own independent challenges, but our challenges are parallel to each other. So it's okay to want to support, but it's also very empowering to know like you're not in this by yourself. You're not doing this alone. And so if I can, you know, demonstrate what sisterhood looks like based off of the people who I present to, you know, my girls. I tell people all the time, I don't bring anyone to my girls unless I have a personal relationship with them. I don't really believe in, you know, the fake like sisterhood, like we cool. No, I support you just like you are supporting me. And so I want to be able to demonstrate that to our girls, because when they cycle out, like I want them to be able to do the same thing as well.
That is all right. What do you hope for the young ladies and Unique Sisters? And what would you say is the one takeaway you want them to have when they finish the program?
So I definitely want them to be able to walk away not the same way that they walked into the program. You know, if we're working on self-confidence, then I want you to be able to confidently stand before me and say, you know, Miss Courtney, thank you so much, because I believe in myself. I'm starting to look at myself differently. You know, I had one of our parents during our Starbucks cookie exchange that we have a partnership with Starbucks Coffee Foundation. And each year they provide a number of workshops for us. And so our parent came out and said, Courtney, I'm just so thankful for you because my daughter is now making the honor roll. My daughter is now starting to consider how she presents herself on social media. She's also considering how she interacts with me as her mom. For that to be something that I received from one of my parents, that's the reward of it. I look at, other organizations. I don't want to be the organization that's only around for 2 to 5 years and then they just disappear. Unique Sisters started here in Detroit, but I believe it should be across the country. I believe it should be across the world, and if I feel like as long as I'm getting prepared for that assignment and that mission to do that, then I will get more and more responses like that from parents and more responses like that from our girls. So just the sense of acknowledging their personal growth, it's definitely the rewarding factor of it. And it's also cool, when our girls come back and they say like, oh, are we having Unique Sisters this weekend? And I'd be like, no, like we just had 2 sessions in a row. Like we got to have like a little break or, anything of that nature. It's cool just to see, my girls excited about that piece of it. And so you never know, like the next phase is where they're contributing to like the development of new curriculum. They're participating in hosting their own workshops, leading that, there's always an opportunity for them to grow. But I want to be submissive and always make sure that I'm listening to what is being told to me, from him and making sure that I'm doing that, that's in pleasure or pleasure of him. So, yeah.
All right. This is awesome, people.
Oh, good.
So before we go, what do you say to those educators or politicians or members of the community who have written off young women of color, particularly those from certain neighborhoods where, they expect very little from those individuals?
So I always say to individuals who are intrigued by, our urban communities, never give up on the underdog, right? Never write them off. Never just think or assume that they don't have an opportunity to be great, because those are the ones who have the most fire underneath their belt. Like those are the individuals who have the greatest ideas. Those are the individuals that you really should be going out and seeking, because they have such a strong passion and desire just to learn more. They see everything on TV. They see, the fancy cars, the lavish lifestyle. They desire to have that. But I believe sometimes, honestly, individuals who are coming, from just the African American community or any other community of color, those are your most humble people. Honestly, they are the ones who have the biggest heart, the strongest heart, and will always come back to help. I believe those are the individuals who we should be recruiting. Those are the individuals that we should always go back out just to get more knowledge, because they have such a larger perspective and such a larger lens to look through, because everything wasn't fed to them. Everything wasn't just played on their plate and say, here, just eat this. They're your strongest hustlers. They're, the individuals, like I said, who have that fire underneath their belt, and they're always going to want to get to the next level, just without trying to get assistance along the way. So don't write us off. Embrace us, love us, and keep, encouraging us, and just don't forget about, this community in a sense.
Okay, people.
Good.
Wow. Yeah, this episode is coming out soon, people. It's coming out soon. Thank you, Courtney, for sharing your passion, your love, your purpose with my audience today. And hopefully people will listen to it and become inspired to do greater work in their own communities. I do want to throw this out there to ask you, how can people work with United Sisters, and in terms of maybe contributing financially, how can people do that as well?
So we, of course, have our website, which is myuniquesisters.org. Definitely, there's always an opportunity to collaborate with us as far as either leading workshops, sponsorships, or just anything as far as just getting in front of our girls to help inspire them. That can always be done through our email address, which is info@myuniquesisters.org. I would like to share that we just launched our girl empowerment movement called I Am My Own, which is a girl empowerment movement that encourages girls across the country to believe in who they are by their own definition. That is a series that we're so excited for because our girls actually are the leading face of that. We'll be doing our workshop tour here in the city of Detroit, where our girls will actually be participating and facilitating the workshop to encourage, young girls who are like them to believe in who they are. So that's another way that you can also get associated through myuniquesisters.org to find a way to collaborate with us. So that is definitely a way to get in contact with us.
Excellent. And people, there'll be information on this post that goes out with the podcast with that information. So, and then you'll be able to holler at Courtney as well. Again, Courtney, thank you so much for this. This is a great ending to my day at work.
Oh, good. Well, I'm excited. I would say the same thing as well. Definitely thank you so much for just allowing an opportunity just for me just to share, our work here in Detroit, and then also just to collaborate and just to partner and just get to know you as well. So I appreciate you. So thank you.
You're welcome anytime. So people, you know how I do this. The video cast will be going up on YouTube. I need you to subscribe, leave your comments. The podcast itself is going up on iTunes and SoundCloud. Follow, subscribe, leave your comments. Your boy's trying to get Oprah on the show, and I need her to know that I'm doing big things around here. So as always, people, invest in you, E to you. Peace.